Mhm. Without further ado, welcome everybody to the power of community and peer support in navigating access and inclusion. My name is Bowen Tang, and I am privileged to be able to speak from you from Vancouver, Canada, where I live in the unceded territory of the Coast Salish, Musqueam, and Squamish peoples in the indigenous community that we live in. Today, I'm speaking to you as the president of the International Federation of Hard of Hearing Young People to share the work that we have done in building the community despite the challenges that we've experienced during COVID-19. In regular times, we often would get together, as you could see in this picture that we have in 2019 when we gathered for our annual general meeting, where we always come together as a community of hard of hearing young people to share our experiences and stories. And in that moment, none of us expected that would have been the last time we were all able to gather in person before COVID-19. And that was particularly challenging for us to figure out a way to stay connected with each other when we are spread across the globe. So today we want to talk about why it is important for us to maintain a sense of community despite not being able to come together in person. So first off, a little bit of background about who we are. So we are an international non-governmental federation for national and regional youth organizations that are dedicated to hard of hearing young people from the age of 18 to 35. Our mission is to enhance the quality of life for hard of hearing young people worldwide by empowering them to be advocates and to build visibility and representation of youth with disability, both at the European and international level. So we started out in Italy in 1968, and it was very Eurocentric in the beginning, and now we have expanded to across the globe. And now our reach is global, where we have 21 member countries all across Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America. And we're currently reaching out to Australia and South America as well. So in the past 5 years, we have expanded to reach out to the hard of hearing young people in regions that may not have as much access to the community of hard of hearing people. And that is what drives our work, is to bring together all the hard of hearing people together in one big global community. There are two main activities that allow us to come together as a community and to grow together in our capacity as advocates for hearing access and hearing healthcare, because for us, communication accessibility is most important to us in order for us to be included in our communities. So in partnership with the Council of Europe, we were able to host study sessions every 2 years where we will spend a week at a youth center in France or in Hungary to talk about how we can become leaders in our own communities and to work with the policymakers and government to inform them about the need for communication accessibility. So we were grateful to have role models such as members of the European Parliament, who is deaf herself, and she was able to guide us through the process of advocating at a policy-making level. The other piece is our summer camps, where it is more of an informal event for all hard of hearing young people who may not even have had the chance to meet another hard of hearing person. This is their first time being part of a community where they could truly be themselves, and they do not have to worry about hiding the fact that they have a hearing loss. knowing that everyone will be mindful of open communication and not having to be told that they are not important enough to be repeated for. Now, our summer camps happen every year, 2 years, and this last one took place in the Netherlands. So this is often the first doorstep for hard of hearing young people to be part of a community and be confident in who they are. And everything else comes into place as they navigate the education and their workplaces. So for today's objective, when we talk about the power of community and peer support, and that is what we are about. We are peers to each other. We can relate to the challenges that we experience because of our hearing loss, and we can lift each other up by sharing a strategy that we use on our day-to-day lives, whether it is for education, for workplaces, or even in our social relationship. All that has changed since COVID-19 started. Nothing compares to us meeting in person and having that human interaction to feel at home. And that was sorely missed when we were separated by the COVID-19. And this resulted in more isolation for us and for any people with disabilities who rely on a community of support to thrive well. So over the first couple of months since the pandemic started, we came together, a group of us came together to look at how we can build a virtual community, okay, and create new opportunities for those who may not have been able to come to our in-person events due to financial challenges or other reasons. And we can even include these people in a virtual platform. Okay? And by coming together, we no longer feel alone, and to look at how we can overcome the obstacles and share resources to overcome the barriers that we experienced during the pandemic, which I will mention later. We'll provide examples of capacity building work that we are doing in the developing region, such as Africa and South America, which can be relevant to other disability sectors. At the end of our sharing of what we do, we only represent the hard of hearing community. So at the end, I would like to invite all of you to a conversation on what it looks like for you to build a community for your sector, okay? Not just for hard of hearing people, but for any people with disabilities or diverse abilities. So here are some guiding questions for us to think about as we go through the session. The first and foremost important question is, why do we need a community? Why is it necessary for people with disability to have a community of our own? And how do we create a community, especially during this time when we're not able to come together in person? What are the possibilities out there? And what are the new opportunities we can pursue? And even after the pandemic is over, how can we utilize the resources that we have now to maintain a greater sense of community than ever before? How can we build back better when we come back stronger from this pandemic? And lastly, what is a community? And that is the final question for us to think about, is what is exactly a community? So to give you a bit of a background, in the beginning of the pandemic, we have heard from many of our members that COVID-19 was taking its toll on communications and well-being. So along with other partners such as International Federation of Hard of Hearing, the European Federation of Hard of Hearing People, as well as the Asia Federation of Hard of Hearing and Deafening. We put together a survey to conduct and collect data information from hard of hearing persons around the globe to look at exactly how we are being affected by the pandemic. And there are 3 key findings that came out from this survey. The first one was public accessibility. For us, we rely on captioning, which we see here. And oftentimes, sign language interpreters are more provided than other forms of access, which do not meet our need. And also, captioning features for online media such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are not easily accessible, and it requires us to do extra work to find ways to make it accessible. So that brings into the exhaustion on our part to create access for ourselves, especially for public information, public health information that inform us what we need to do to keep safe and well during COVID-19. The public accessibility was the #1 challenge for us at the beginning. The other equally main barrier for hard of hearing people is the face masks and social distancing. So only 8% of people, including myself, could understand someone wearing a face mask with no way for us to utilize visual cues. And that was the biggest confidence breaker for a lot of us. All the strategies that we used before the pandemic, where we rely on body language, visual cues, were thrown out the window. And we were now faced with this reality of seeing people with no expression and only relying completely on listening. That led to mental fatigue, that led to lack of self-confidence, and that led to social withdrawal. We prefer to stay home and not interact with anyone in our education or workplaces. And despite using the strategies that we know, we still have difficulty understanding people after asking for repetition. And sometimes we experience impatience from other people as well. And this was what started to fall apart for some of us, because we no longer have access to that community where we could be with people that could understand us and be patient with us, if we were left to fend for ourselves in our own communities. And lastly, online communication. So with the transition to virtual platforms, we are looking at Zoom, like this one, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Facebook Messenger. Everything is being done online, and what is missing is access. So we had to reinvent and look at what access looks like in an online setting. So captioning apps, live captioning were not available in the beginning, and it took quite some time for the community to lobby against Zoom to request that they provide automatic captions for free. Today, we are grateful to have professional captioning so that we can have 100% access. Yeah. So to summarize, public accessibility, face mask and social distancing, as well as online communication were the main barriers that hard of hearing people experienced during the beginning of the pandemic. And because of that very reason, we found a way and we recognize the importance of creating a virtual community so that all of us can come together to brainstorm solutions to these barriers. So in a way, the pandemic is a blessing that it opened up new doors for us to come together and form a community. And now I would like to invite the panelists who are members of our organization to share the experiences of how they create a community during COVID-19. So first off, we have Nalup Wama Mastula from Uganda. Then we have Sebastian Lafleur from the Philippines. And lastly, we have Sergio Rodriguez from Bolivia. So all of them are involved in the hard of hearing communities in their countries, and they will share how they continue to build a community during COVID-19. So I would like to invite Mastula to turn on her camera and share her experiences. She may be experiencing some internet connection challenges, as she is from Uganda, which may not have stable connection. So while we are waiting for her, I would like to pass on to Sebastian from the Philippines to share his experiences. Sebastian, are you? Yeah. Welcome. Thank you for coming. So I will like to pass the floor to Sebastian, and I will stop the screen sharing. Okay, the floor is yours now, Sebastian.
Thank you so much, Bowen. Can everyone hear me? Loud and clear. Thank you. My experience, as Bowen has pointed out, that we needed to be in a community in order for us to work together, and the pandemic especially has created a lot of hardships for us. And one of the stressors that pandemic has brought actually forced us to try and find other places or mediums to distress. And one of that is to be in a community where you can be yourself, like fully yourself. And in order to do that, you'd have to find somebody who is every bit as much, at least, like you. And that's the reason why we should form a community. And for me personally, since the pandemic started, I have experienced this sort of Goldilocks effect. Since in the hearing world, it's it's too much in the hearing world. There isn't enough that felt like we were talking about the things that I care about. And I tried joining communities in the deaf world, but again, I do not know how to speak in sign languages. Also, I did not understand exactly how they were able to communicate when it comes to written English, since the way they communicate in written English is very definitely deaf English. And since I had trouble joining them, I started looking for hard of hearing community instead, the one that's smack dab in the middle. And ever since I joined, it has always been great for me. It has given me the support that I've needed, and I felt seen. I felt properly represented, and the things that I care about, I could pursue and be myself. And that's the reason why I felt that even though I was able to find that perfect bowl of porridge, uh, I'm hoping that everyone else, no matter where you are in the world, you're able to form your own community and join existing communities to maybe after this pandemic, we could use that strength in numbers to finally gain the rights that we would like to have and the equality that we are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian, for sharing your personal experiences and to emphasize the importance of the community. I'm wondering if you could share with us an example of your organization, the Hard of Hearing Group Philippines. What was one thing that your organization did to try to come together during the pandemic? Mhm.
Okay, so one thing that the pandemic did to us was that it forced us to rely on Facebook. And so once everyone on the Facebook group started gaining some popularity and activity, that was when we started organizing meet and greets, and there was like mini activities where we create a Zoom call like this one, and then we just talk about anything or everything really. And whenever we felt like it wasn't enough, we also invited other organizations from other countries. And again, we created a Zoom meeting and just talked about anything really, our experiences, how it felt to be living in that country or in the local community that we are in, and just air some grievances and share some supportive ways to cope with living. And also one other thing that we did was we created group chats so that even though they didn't feel confident talking because of maybe they're not confident or conscious about the way they speak, we allowed them to have chats, and we made sure that it is as lively as possible. And as much as possible, we also showed that that space, that group chat is always going to be a safe space for them. And it wouldn't matter what it is that you guys would like to talk about or to chat with, and it would always be a safe space for them. And also, we created the Facebook group where they can share things like um, tests, hearing tests, or free hearing tests that they know about, and share about hearing aids and things like that. And since in our country, we still don't have captioning in the public television, we found ways to other platforms really where we can watch shows that we'd like and have captions on them. And that's one of the few things that we have organized in order for us to stay as a community.
Thank you. And I also know from personal experience that your organization did groundbreaking work in connecting with another organization from Japan so that your community and their community can share information about what they've done to overcome the barriers from the COVID-19. So that's really fantastic, especially when there can be language barriers and you utilize the technologies to break through that and be able to meet more people from a different country. So thank you for your sharing, Sebastian. So now I would like to invite Shay from Bolivia. So if I can ask Shay to turn on his camera. And I'll share my screen. Okay. So Shay has his audio on, but he's not able to turn on his camera. So at this time, while we wait for Shay, I'd like to invite you all to comment in the chat box if you have any burning questions or comments you would like to put in here. We'll have time for open for discussion as well. So Shay, if you're not able to turn on your video, we can still hear you for audio. Yeah. So we will hear your voice for now. So you can start by sharing, and I can share. Oh, there we go. Excellent. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you read my light? I illuminate enough good for you read my light. Okay. I will talk about my experience about to the hard of hearing people in Bolivia. And thank you, Bowen, for the invitation for share the trouble around the world with many people. And I read my paper here. The power of the community. Bolivia is a cut down a country without access to the sea, with a slow and expensive internet, and the population now little about the needs of people with disabilities. It has many customs as a very communal influence. It will be the first country in Latin America, Bolivia, to officially recognize the hard of hearing population with its local organization. In recent years, there have been many struggles to claim our rights as a population with disabilities. And you will check the documentary, The Fight. It is a documentary about the fight of the many persons with disabilities in many years ago. However, there is a profound invisibility in general about the identity of the hard of hearing population. The Constitution, the new state political constitution recognizes the rights of people with disabilities, but no the hard of hearing people. It is a big trouble. Society does not know the necessary needs, tools, and materials that allow us good accessibility practice for the hard of hearing population. It means three situations. Number one, hearing health. The state does not cover the early detection, rehabilitation, treatment, or provision of hearing aids. One of 100 en inglés, ¿no? Cent hard of hearing, 1% hard of hearing people get a hearing aid programmed to their hearing measurement. A minority get donations of hearing aids through donation campaigns, but they are not tailored or harmful. Only hearing aids are the equivalent to an average of 1 year of minimum wage, and the most expensive could reach more than 3 years of minimum wage. The access of hearing aids may be hindered by number one, the level of income throughout Latin America is medium or low. Exorbitant cost. Number two, it takes months to achieve this, and it is obstructed by customs. And number three, a few countries have state coverage with both hearing aids and cochlear implants. The accessibility, it is a very important point. And the speed having an indigenous president, the speed and more progressive constitution, Bolivia has abandoned many populations with disabilities in practice, with their exceptions. One film, one movie of children has subtitles in the cinema. In the Universal Accessibility Act project remains under observation. It is not approved for the Congress of my country. Hard of hearing people don't have access to real-time transcription tools, and only those who have access to the internet. For people, Latin America has 4 of 5 speaking Spanish-speaking countries. Most don't know English. It is a linguistic barrier. The Spanish language is very complex compared to Spanish, and it is a most important detail about the linguistic privation in the hard of hearing and deaf population. Communication access real-time services do not exist in South America, except in one case in Argentina. Using in webinars and screen with a software that transcribes automatically following certain guidelines has limitations when people have speech difficulty or there is noisy environment. Very few now the technique of real-time transcription in their language or change one language to another, and we don't not have access to some programs or apps. And the last experience, the personal experience, the most significant moment of my life was when I met other hard of hearing people. It's very important. I found myself through the same barriers. Only we understand each other without explanation. Before I meet them, I thought being a hard of hearing was the worst thing that could happen to me, and that I was the only one who had this. Today, I feel privileged. Hard of hearing have people have difficulties with the Spanish to understand what they read or say to 10 authors. It's hard to work as a hard of hearing team if the majority is not empowered. It is proven that the barriers are not only communicational, but also attitudinal. At the beginning, we labeled the lack of accessibility, lack of courage, and we did not know what we wanted for ourselves, and nobody got us clues. We had to find the answers on our own. To get my hearing aid, I traveled participating to an event in Mexico. I bought them hearing aid from an hearing aid distributor, and we had to cross many barriers. You will check the IFHOHYP the International Federation Hard of Hearing Young People report, Maria wrote about my biography about this theme. Many people leave the country to get the cochlear implant. And this situation, we must be consistent in the support to peers. Hater, we all unit or we all think. Many thank you.
Thank you so much, Shay, for your sharing. And you couldn't have said it more beautifully that either we all unite or we all think together, and that really speaks to the power of community and peer support. So unfortunately, Mascula is not able to join us due to technical challenges. So I will move ahead to conclude other examples from IFHOHYP and how we build a virtual community. So once again, thank you to Sebastian and Say for sharing the experiences.
Thank you, Bowen.
Building back better is the theme of this year's Conference of State Parties. And how do we do that in our organization after figuring out what we needed to do since the beginning of COVID-19? Virtual meetups was the #1 way for us to connect in some form. And it wasn't just that we could set up a virtual meeting and that was it. We had to consider the language access as well as the technological asset as well to ensure that everybody can participate meaningfully as if we were together in person. So earlier this year, after several test runs in a smaller setting and getting feedback from our team, we were able to host our first virtual social meetup. And the bonus of this was not only could we provide English captions, which is not shown here, but we were able to expand our asset to include Spanish captions, as you can see at the center of the screen. So through the virtual meetup, it is a very casual environment and an informal setting for people to just talk about the highlights, celebrate the successes despite all the struggles that they had, and to be among friends. I think that is one thing that we really miss the most, is to be among friends, whether or not it is in our own communities or outside of our communities. But this has created a milestone for us that virtual technology will be beneficial in the long run post-pandemic because it allows people who live in rural regions of the world and they can still be part of our global community and not having to think about the financial cost of coming to our events before the pandemic. So of course, we will still have in-person events in the future. Nothing compares to being in person and having that physical connection. At the same time, we also want to continue having the doors open for those who may not be able to have that luxury. So altogether, virtual meetups is an essential part of how we build back better for the people with disabilities so that they can be in a space where they feel safe and included. And it was through those virtual meetups that we have conversations and ideas to inspire each other that leads to the next component of our work, which is capacity building. So in those virtual meetups and conversations, we look at the common challenges that we experience, such as the face mask, as I mentioned earlier in the report. So we put together a global inventory of clear and transparent face masks so that people know where they can purchase those products to use in their own communities. So it is an exhaustive list of places around the world and every continent for people to find those masks. In partnership with the World Federation of the Deaf, we created a statement on accessible communication for deaf and hard of hearing people. And also looking at what are the technological tools we can use in the virtual world, such as the captioning apps. And lastly, creating a survey that look at the standards for subtitling. So all of these were created because of the conversation in our virtual meetups. And it empowers people to be able to have control on the changes that we can make despite not coming together. Right? Because we were so used to, sitting together in a circle and brainstorming together. And now we equally able to do that in a virtual platform. And in fact, it had never been even better than before because of the inspiration we got from seeing each other, even though we're far apart. And all of these resources are particularly beneficial to the developing region when they have limited access and knowledge about their own identity, like what does it mean to have a hearing loss and what are the possibilities there are. They don't know much. And that leads to the last part of our Building Back Better, is the power and magic of storytelling. So we have the privilege of being part of the World Hearing Forum, where we are part of many different groups with the common goal to push awareness for hearing access and hearing healthcare. So the power and magic of storytelling enable us to share the inspirational stories of the change makers around the globe, living every day to show that it is perfectly fine to have a life with hearing loss. So we have a person named Alana, and her motto is to live each day without giving up. And what a message it is for all of us, not just for those of us who are hard of hearing, is that we can be strong to continue to persist, and no challenges is too high for us to overcome. And we also have Bianca, a parent of 3 deaf children, to share her understanding that sometimes deafness is invisible and many disabilities can be invisible, but that's not to say we should be forgotten. We should be seen in a way that we are respected and recognized for what we can do and not what we're lacking. The storytelling is another way for us to form a strong community when people can see what the possibilities are, and the sky is the limit because there is an unlimited possibilities out there and we can achieve anything we set our minds to. So building a platform for virtual meetups, sharing resources to build capacity, and storytelling are 3 key ingredients for us to build back better. And now, without further ado, I would like to open up the floor to all of you. Thank you very much for staying through this session. And I hope that you took away from what was shared and that it could be applicable to your sector. So here's the question I would like to open to all of you. What is a community for people with disabilities? Or as sometimes we like to call it, diverse abilities. Because we're not disabled, we just have diverse abilities. So I would like to yield the floor to all the participants here and share your thoughts. please turn on your video and I will unmute you. Hello, Val, would you like to share something? You are muted. I don't think we can hear you.
Hello. I'm sorry. I had just just connected right now because I am in my job. I had just this news that we have a meeting right now. So how is everybody? Am I okay? Well, this is a very good discussion. Community is very important for everyone. What I can say now is that without the community who understand, who understand our conditions, one can be very so lonely living with himself and wouldn't understand what really happening with himself. One example of this is when the person, me, for example, myself, no? When I was the first time I knew from the doctors that I am now having a bad condition with my ears. I am now hard of hearing. The first thing that comes to my mind is I am deaf. I haven't known that there is a people, or there are some people that are to be considered a hard of hearing. So I am trying to fit myself to the community of the deaf people because I have a confusion of my situations. So the importance of the community is that when there is a right community where you fit in, you understand more of yourself. So right now, not only by the national community that we have, but also the international one is a good environment and a good interaction between people around the world. So thank you very much for giving me a chance to speak.
Thank you so much, Val, for that personal sharing. And it really attached to what community can do with someone who not have the opportunity to know that there's another person or group that shares the same experiences or can relate to your experiences. And that is why we always emphasize to the policymakers and to government officials that there needs to be an investment to community support groups for people with disabilities, whether it's hard of hearing, deaf, blind, or any other intersectionalities. And it is only through the funding that we receive that we can continue to offer these opportunities for people to come together physically and virtually. Yeah. Okay. There's also the option for you to share your comments in the chat box if you do not wish to turn on your video, and we can relate to your comments and questions to the floor. Yeah. So there's a question from Phil. Hello, Phil. Thank you for your question. And he's asking, could you share some websites and virtual community for people to check out? So we do have a website and which Leonie has shared, and you are welcome to check out our website. And this is for young people, hard of hearing young people. As you know that the International Disability Alliance has a list of resources as well as links to different groups that may already have their own virtual communities. So I encourage you to check out that as well, the International Disability Alliance website. We also have the Facebook page which is a very useful tool to connect with other people. So that is a platform for you to consider. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm just going to read a comment from Leonie. So for her, IFHOHYP has changed her life, and until she was 25, she had not met someone with a hearing loss like herself. Since she became part of IFHOHYP, she has become much more confident to speak about her hearing loss with hearing people and to demand her rights for access. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. All right. If there are no further comments and questions, I would like to go to the final thoughts, and it will also include the contact information for you to contact us if you would like to continue the conversation, because I think it's equally important for us, the hard of hearing community, to collaborate with other sectors, to learn from each other, and to engage in dialogue, to look at how we can form an even larger community, not just for our own sector, but collaborating and intersecting with each other, because we all have such great stories to share and unique gifts and talents to offer. And together, as they mentioned, we are much stronger and our voices can be heard much louder. So here are our final thoughts. To belong to a community is to act as the creator, investor, and co-owner of that community. So our organization was created on the idea of wanting to connect with other hard of hearing people. So an idea came about, one person created it, and a group of people invested in the community. And over time, they became owners of that community to continue to grow and to invite more people into the community. It is our role as leaders, whether it is leaders as the nonprofit organization, non-governmental organization, or government departments. It is our role as leaders in any capacity to foster among all of the community citizens a sense of ownership and accountability. So even though I may be the president of this wonderful organization, I strive to empower all the members in IFHOHYP that they feel belong in our community and that they feel that they have a role to play to be part of this community, to grow this community, and to learn together. I am mainly the person to guide them on this journey. So all of us can do this together, and all of us have an equal role to play. And here is the last question I would like to leave with all of you today. Not just for your own sector, but for people with diverse abilities. In this conference of state parties on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the question we need to ask ourselves is, what do we want to create together as a community? Because you know what? We are coming together as a community this week at the conference of state parties when we have this important conversation about moving forward and building back better post-pandemic. So once again, what do we want to create together as a community? Thank you very much again for your time and participating in this session with us. We hope that you will contact us, and here is our contact info. You can connect with us by email, info@ifhohyp.org, Our website is www.ifhohyp.org. We have a Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. So please be sure to follow us. And I hope we will hear from you. And I look forward to the conversation that we'll have together. And stay safe and well, and have a great day. Take care.